Welcome back to the 100th episode
of the 3x5 Life podcast.
Boom!
100.
100. Crazy. I didn't know if we'd get here. if I'm being completely honest. I just did not know
where this adventure was going
adventure was going, but I was hoping for 100.
Well, here we are.
And here we are. We're sitting here. And we thought we would take the opportunity on this episode to kind of shed, I guess, a few things that we've learned along the way, what this podcast has given to us, this platform has given to us.
Yeah.
And tonight we are going to the Lumineers concert to celebrate our 100th episode.
I mean, it's actually to celebrate our anniversary, but we're just going to loop this in there too. All the celebrations. We've had a quiet house since 10:30 in the morning, and we've been very productive today, and this is one of our to-dos. So here we are.
It's not a to-do.
It's not a to-do. It's something we get to do without distraction.
So there's 4 or 5 things that we wanted to touch on as points of what we've learned along the way through this podcast journey. The first one for me really was how I consume content. Having this podcast has forced me to consume content in a completely different way. And it really has given me a learning ear. So when I'm listening to other podcasts, when I'm reading a book, when I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm always trying to mine for little nuggets, golds, ahas that then I can share, to a greater community. And it's almost like the circle of learning is teaching. When you teach something, then you have a greater understanding of that topic or that idea or that philosophy. So it's really been interesting because I'll be constantly taking notes while I'm parked, not while I'm driving.
Or voice notes
while I'm driving. And to really think of like, oh, Jesse, I'll come home and be like, hey, is this a good idea for a podcast? And then we'll kind of jam on it over dinner. And it's been like a really fun way to learn.
And I love that you've had this experience. I am a teacher by trade. And so for years, I have recognized that like even the biology, I was a biology teacher. So the content of biology made so much more sense through teaching. And then when I started working with schools and working on this type of information, I always learned so much more by the process of teaching or speaking with others. So I love seeing you get to be the role of a teacher because that's not a hat that you normally wear.
It is not.
I also can relate to that. I've talked on here before about some of the different surveys and self-awareness assessments that I've taken or given my grad students. And one of them is the Sparketype, which is a survey by Jonathan Fields. I actually use this in my stress management class. And I love this survey. The description of it is like, it's the essential nature of work that fills you with meaning and lets you feel fully expressed, alive with purpose, and absorbed in flow. So it's how can you orchestrate or choreograph your work that you're currently doing in a way that highlights like your gifts or what sparks you. And so for me, after taking this assessment, my Sparketype was, and you can do this online, I'll actually link it in the show notes, was something called a sage. And a sage is the ability to get energy and enthusiasm and feel fully expressed, not while absorbing information, but taking that information and then finding a way to connect it to other people. So my biggest bucket filler is when I can have an individualized conversation normally with a human being, figure out areas that they are really kind of wanting to focus on or grow. And I love being able to help them with the resources that I have in like my mental database and direct them in a direction of like, here's a book to read, or like, here's something to listen to. Or so I absorb content just for the sole purpose of being able to share it with others. And this podcast has been such a gift for that because I have lost some of those outlets a little bit in the last few years when I'm not in front of doing professional development and stuff anymore. So this has been a really great way to still tap into that.
Awesome.
Long story long, sorry. Next bullet.
Next point.
Sorry, that was long-winded.
Is selfishly, I think for us, it's created this self-development library. So 100 episodes, our average episode is 10-ish minutes. So that's over 16 hours of content that hopefully one day our kids will want to watch. If, something ever happened to one of us, being able to, see what we were thinking, our beliefs, in our 30s and 40s that our kids can tap into and just learn from us, hopefully. So selfishly, having this almost like time capsule of personal development material for our kids, I think is something that hopefully will be very valuable.
I think it's been neat just to hear, like my mom, for example, listens to the podcast every week. And so many times she's offered feedback and been like, I love hearing about like the behind the curtains of all of the things that she sees Bryan and I doing in our life. Right. And that looks crazy and doesn't really have a purpose, but our habits and our goals and the ways we track things. And when she hears it in a contented episode, she's able to kind of put those puzzle pieces together. So I've had some amazing conversations even with my mom. And that's the hope that someday, Nash and Hadley will be able to look back and be like, wow, these are some words of wisdom that I might be able to like put in my pocket and utilize to help kind of navigate the world and life. And yep. all these crazy obstacles that get in our way.
Yeah. And another huge one is time with Jessie.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Well, so I listened to this clip. It was Peter Attia interviewing Arthur Brooks, and they started to dive into marriage and what makes
marriage.
And what makes happy marriages, and the different aspects of the happiest marriages. And they were arguing that it's really this deep friendship and like philosophical conversations and beliefs that are in alignment that you can have deep conversations with that other person, deep, interesting conversations. And I think this platform really fosters those conversations for Jessie and I, so that we have these, little micro conversations along the way to the podcast, because we're trying to like, hey, this is what I learned today, or this is what I heard today. Isn't that interesting? And then she, gives me her insight or feedback on that topic. Mm-hmm. And I think that just grows our bond stronger, so that when we age, or as we age, our relationship, we're feeding into each other, not just feeding into our kids, because one day our kids will be older and they'll be out of the house, and our kids change every year. And they're different kids and going through seasons of life. And if we have this thing going on in a very positive way, it's just going to make us happier and flourish as we get older.
Wow. I like that one. I completely agree. This has been a great little set aside time for us to connect on these things that have always been important to us, but we talked about this before, like being siloed in our journeys and not sometimes really connecting on what he's chewing on or what I'm chewing on. And so this has been a nice way to like come to the table and have these conversations, which I also think leads into my next one, which was the accountability. One of the things that both of us try really hard to do is practice what we preach. We do not feel like it is our place to talk about topics that we haven't even tried or utilized in our lives before, seen an impact. The goal is to like throw spaghetti at the wall with all of these different topics for you guys. So hopefully you're able to find one that sticks. And we don't want to speak about things that we don't have personal experiences with. And so Bryan and I are accountable to each other to call each other out if we, are talking about being more mindful or more present or engaging in our relationship or prioritizing our relationships on a podcast episode. We're very mindful of making sure that we're actually implementing the things that we're talking about. So it's made us, it's made us better, I think, and better able to meet our goals and the habits that we have set aside that are really important to us.
Yeah. And I've always, when I was looking for business coaches or personal coaches over the years, I was always very hesitant, because I'm like, all right, this guy talks a good talk, but is he secretly stopping at McDonald's on the way home? Is he not living all the buckets of life?
Because that would just be horrible.
Yeah, it would be. And I think that's why I was gravitated so much to Bryan Johnson, because he like talks the talk and walks the walk and is like to the extreme, which I would never be able to probably get to. And I don't know if I necessarily want to get to, but I respect that. And I respect that journey of trying to be the best person you can be and following through on what you're saying. So that's a good one.
Yeah, thank you. And then last but not least, I just wanted to make sure that we take a moment and just thank you guys. It's so funny because there's been so many times where we're like, okay, should we continue this? Like, what's our plan here? Like Bri said, did we think we were going to get to 100 episodes? Not necessarily, but there has been so many times where we have gotten like an email or a message or something on Facebook where people have given us such positive feedback about the information that we're sharing and how they never thought about something in that light, and how there was even multiple times where it's like, it's changed my life and my trajectory with the 3x5 Life product. And these types of messages just fill us up so much, because one of our ultimate goals is that bucket of contribution. It's hard to find ways to contribute to your community, and not that we're doing something crazy or like life altering or changing, but It's so nice to know that even just a little bit of information can really change the trajectory of what you're doing and the practices that you're putting into place. And so we just wanted to thank you guys, because really that's the reason why we continue to do it. So thanks for the positive feedback.
100%. Yeah, it's been a ton of fun. And if we didn't have that feedback, it wouldn't be nearly as fulfilling. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So 100 in the book.
Here we go.
Let's keep going.
All right.
All right, guys.
Have a good one. Take care.
See ya.
We are all